Hi guys, so Brandon Lewis, the Northern Ireland Secretary of State, appeared on BBC Breakfast to defend Boris Johnson and claimed that he would be the man to win the next general election. Wow, what an interesting statement to make. Anyway, he was of course challenged on what he thinks should happen, and he resorted to the "we have to wait for Sue Gray's report" response, which Boris Johnson himself has been using over the last few days. But there are issues being raised about the fact that Boris Johnson is her boss, and if he will have parts of the report removed before it's published. Anyway, let's hear Brandon talk about Boris Johnson winning the next general election.
And lastly, if it is proved, and I hesitate to ask this because I suspect you'll say you have to wait till the end of the report, but you're a human being and you have your own standing in what you believe in. So I ask you this personally, if you like. If there is evidence that Boris Johnson broke the rules, should he carry on as Prime Minister?
Well, again, you're right, Charlie. You are tempting me with hypotheticals, which is something I've learned over my career.
No, this is not a hypothetical, Brandon. A hypothetical would be if Jeremy Corbyn had won the election back in 2019, or if Keir Starmer was Prime Minister today, do you think they would be boozing it up in the garden at number 10? That would be a hypothetical, because neither of them are Prime Minister. But you know who is Prime Minister? Boris Johnson. And it's not a hypothetical to suggest, well, we have evidence that he was in the garden. We have pictures of him drinking wine and eating cheese, and his girlfriend sat next to him and their baby in her arms. And he claims this was a work event. Or what? I'm not sure what he's claiming at this stage, because he keeps jumping around. He said the guidance was followed. Now he says, actually, no, the guidance was not followed, and I'm sorry about that. It was a mistake. I should have told people to go back inside, including his wife, or his girlfriend at the time. Look, we have evidence of Boris Johnson breaking the rules. This is not a hypothetical.
I'm asking you to be honest with us.
I do appreciate that, and I get it's a very fair question, but one of the things I have learned over the years is getting into hypotheticals is never helpful. It's not accurate.
It's not a hypothetical.
I would always take a view based on the facts as we know them. We don't know them yet, but what I will be.
We do know them. We can see the picture. Boris Johnson was in the garden. Boris Johnson himself said he was there.
Be very clear about is I think Boris Johnson is the right person to be the Prime Minister of our country. I think he's the Prime Minister who will win the next general election because he is doing the work to take our country forward in a positive way, not just through COVID itself, but those wider reforms for our country, improving our economy, improving our health service, dealing with issues we could have and should have arguably dealt with for many years around health and social care. Absolutely, with a passion for delivering for our whole of the UK and everybody in it. That's why I think he's the right person to lead our country. I think he'll win the next general election.
Mr. Lewis, some people.
Now, you're probably wondering, has Brandon Lewis lost his marbles? Has he gone insane? What's wrong with him? Sure, he doesn't believe that Boris Johnson can win the next general election. He has not gone insane. He's being very sly here. Now, there are different types. I'll get to Brandon Lewis in a moment, but I want to explain there are different types of politicians, especially surrounding a crisis like this. There are politicians who see a chance to replace the current Prime Minister. Okay, Rishi Sunak, for example. Now, where was Rishi Sunak recently? He was very far away, both politically and physically, from Boris Johnson. Now, Rishi Sunak, I think, is positioning himself to become the next Prime Minister. And the first thing you need to do is, if you want to become the next Prime Minister, is to distance yourself, both politically, well, at least politically, from the current Prime Minister. Boris Johnson, when he resigns, he will resign. But when he resigns, he's going to be regarded as a failure. And the next Prime Minister doesn't want to be tarnished by that. He doesn't want to be connected in any way to that failure. So that's what Rishi Sunak was doing recently. On Wednesday, he was 200 miles away, and as I said, both politically and physically, he was far away from Boris Johnson. Now, there are another type of politicians who have no real hope of winning a cabinet seat, or they're not really interested, and they're happy to throw the Prime Minister under a bus by calling on him to resign. Look, it could also be a group of politicians who are in serious trouble with their seats. For example, if Boris Johnson remains in place, the Conservatives in Scotland are not too happy about that. They want Boris Johnson out because it doesn't benefit them by him remaining. Now, the likes of the ERG or the CRG, they're not going to be running the country, although in a sense they are a case of the tail wagging the dog, but officially they don't want to be running the country. So they're happy to throw Boris Johnson under a bus, under the impression that maybe they're going to get somebody a bit more friendly to their position. And then we have the Brandon Lewis types. So let's get to Brandon Lewis. So these are people who pretend to be loyal to the Prime Minister. Look, Brandon Lewis doesn't give a crap about Boris Johnson. He's doing this for the party. He wants to show the party that he's a loyal foot soldier. Okay? I'm going to talk about how great the Prime Minister is, he's doing a wonderful job. But this is not about the Prime Minister. This is about the party. He's talking directly to the party. I'm a good guy. I'm on your side. And this is about his career. Because he knows that he's not going to be in a position to become Prime Minister. So he's not going to distance himself from Boris Johnson. He's not going to throw Boris Johnson under a bus because he knows there's a possibility for him to improve his position. Maybe become Chancellor, maybe become Health Secretary or something like that. A higher profile position. So what is he doing? He's defending the Prime Minister. He's saying, yes, he could win the next general election. Brandon Lewis, if you spoke to him off the record, of course he'd say Boris Johnson doesn't have a hope. But he's speaking to the party here, and he needs to show that he's loyal. So let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.